Today I'm sharing a fermented soda recipe for making strawberry soda. It's probiotic rich, wonderful for good gut health, and much better than anything you'd find at the grocery store. Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, sourdough, ferments, and more. So if you enjoy learning about those things, consider subscribing to my channel. And don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. To make this fermented strawberry soda, you're going to need to start with a ginger bug. And if you've not seen my video on this, I'll link to it in the iCards and in the description below so that you can make one of these to get ready to make not only strawberry soda, but any type of soda. And it's this ginger bug that helps with the fermentation process to make the fermented soda probiotic rich. Now this is a ginger bug where I grated the ginger, and this is one where I just chopped it up. Either way will work, but basically what it needs to do, it needs to ferment, be fed, and ferment, and be fed, and ferment for about 5 days or so to be ready to be used to make soda. So once you've got your ginger bug all ready, and it's nice and fizzy and ready to use to make the fermented soda, you just want to measure out about 1/4 cup. That's all we're going to need. And then all you're going to want to do with this is just to feed it with a little fresh ginger, a little bit of white cane sugar, and a little bit of water. And then you can put it out on your counter to continue to ferment, or you can store it in your fridge if you're not ready to make more fermented sodas with it. And if you store it in your fridge, you just have to feed it once a week. But if you keep it out on your counter, you'll want to feed it daily. And I go over all of this in detail in the video where I talk about how to make the ginger bug. Now today I'm just going to make a quart of this fermented soda, and you can adjust this recipe up or down if you want to make more or less. But I really recommend starting with making a quart. That's what I recommended when we made the homemade ginger ale. And the reason is that fermented sodas, or fermented probiotic rich sodas, are different than what you're going to find at the grocery store. Number one, they're probiotic rich and good for gut health, but they do taste different. They're not going to be as sweet as what you would get from a grocery store soda. And you need to sort of play with the flavors a little to get to the point where it's sweet enough that you like, but not too sweet. You don't want to have too much sugar, because the whole point of making homemade sodas is to make them healthier, make them probiotic rich, and to have less sugar than what you would have at the grocery store. Now, if your fruit is very ripe, and today we're going to use strawberries and we're going to make a strawberry soda, but you can use any kind of berry that you like. You can use blackberries, you can use blueberries, raspberries. They all make wonderful fermented sodas. And if your fruit is very ripe, you may not even need to add any sugar at all. So if you feel that your fruit isn't super ripe and nice and sweet, you can add some sugar. Now, unlike when you make homemade ginger ale, which I really recommend using the dried cane juice like the sucanat or the rapadura, because I think that since you don't really have fruit in it and fruit sugar, you just have a little bit of, what's coming from the ginger, that the minerals in that type of supernatural sugar is very helpful to the fermentation process. So even if you're making ginger ale and you're not using the sucanat and you're just using white sugar, I recommend adding in, about a teaspoon of molasses or so. But with fruit sodas like this, that's not necessary, because you have all of this fruit. And that's giving a lot of nutrition, so to speak, to the yeast and the bacteria. It's giving them a lot to eat. And so you've got a lot of natural sugars, the fructose, you've got lots of minerals and vitamins. So the yeast and the bacteria are very happy. But in terms of taste, if you feel your fruit isn't at the peak of ripeness, you can add a little sugar. For a fruit soda, I feel that it's fine to add in white cane sugar. And this is just plain organic white cane sugar. And I've just got 1/4 cup here, and I'm just going to go ahead and just sprinkle this over my strawberries. And what I've gotten here are 6 cups of sliced strawberries. And then I also like to add in the juice of 1 lemon. I always do this when I make a homemade soda because I feel it just adds a little something special to sort of brighten the flavor. So that's something I always do, whether making ginger ale or one of these berry fermented sodas, I always like to add the juice of a lemon, but you can leave that out if you want, but I think it really brightens the flavor. Now what we're going to do is just puree the strawberries, the sugar, and the lemon juice. Alrighty, I think that's perfect. Just ran that for less than a minute. Now you can also do this in a blender too. I'm just doing it in the food processor today, but either a blender or the food processor will work. Basically, you just want to create a puree. Now all you want to do is get a measuring cup, a large measuring cup like this, or a bowl, whatever you have, and we're just going to pour this right into this strainer that we place over the bowl or the measuring cup, whatever we're using, and we're going to push this through to get all of the puree out but leave the seeds behind. Just going to use my spatula here. I remove the blade and I'm just going to use my spatula to get out every last bit of goodness. Now we're just going to work this through with the spatula through the strainer into our measuring cup until we've got all the puree down in there. Alrighty, well we've got all that puree pushed through the strainer. We've got a few seeds left behind, and don't worry if one or two of the really tiny little strawberry seeds gets through, that's fine. It gives it a nice homemade look. But it's caught most of them, and now we'll get ready to go on to the next step. Now that came out to be a little more than 2 cups of pureed strawberries, and now what we're going to do is go ahead and add our 1/4 cup of ginger bug. And the next thing we're going to do is add enough water, and this is chlorine-free water, and we're going to add that to where we have 4 cups, a total of 4 cups of the strawberry mixture. Now we're ready to bottle it up. Now I want to talk about some options when it comes to bottling. I already discussed this in my video where I showed you how to make homemade ginger ale, and I'll link to that in the iCards and in the description below. I'm not a fan of bottling fermented beverages like this. It just makes me very nervous because even with your best bottles, sometimes you probably heard, that people have had them break on them. And so I generally don't do this. However, if you decide you do want to do it, I want to share a few tips with you. If you decide that you want to use one of these swing top bottles, which really holds in the carbonation, then you want to make sure that you buy very high quality bottles that are made for bottling carbonated beverages. And then when you leave this to ferment for a few days on your counter, I highly recommend that you put it in some type of container, like some plastic, like Tupperware, Rubbermaid container, just in case it breaks. It's not going to get all over your kitchen. And then when you transfer it to your refrigerator, it definitely slows down the fermentation, but it's still going to be very rich in carbon dioxide and very fizzy. And so you may want to continue to keep it in some type of plastic container when you transfer it to your refrigerator, just in the event that it does break, at least it's all contained. I'm just noticing this is already starting to get fizzy. My ginger bug was very, very active. It's funny. In any event, the way that I generally like to ferment my homemade sodas is to use a quart-size canning jar with a plastic storage lid that's made for canning jars. Or you can even put the canning lid and the canning ring. I've done that too. I've talked about that in other videos where I've made fermented vegetables. Or you could put it in a little bottle like this. This is just an old recycled kombucha bottle from the grocery store. So you could use something like this. And what I like to do is if I put it in here, or even if you're using one of these swing top bottles, you're going to fill them with the homemade soda. Then you're going to put it on your counter in a warm place out of direct sunlight, and you're going to let it ferment. What's going to happen is the yeast and the good bacteria are going to start eating the sugars, the natural sugars in the fruit, the little bit of white sugar that you added if you added any. And when it eats that, when they eat that, the yeast and the bacteria, they give off carbon dioxide, and that's what makes things fizzy, whether they're fizzy foods like sauerkraut or other fermented vegetables, or fizzy beverages like even beet kvass and things like that. With homemade sodas, it's the same thing. So what I recommend is that you put it in a warm place. It could start becoming very fizzy and bubbly after 2 days. If your kitchen is cooler and the weather is cooler, it might take a few more days. It can sometimes take 5 or 6, even longer days to really start getting very bubbly. But what I would recommend is after the 2nd day, check it. If it's very bubbly, release a little bit of the carbon dioxide. You may even at that point want to taste it. If it tastes nice and it's nice and fizzy and it's at the level of sweetness you like, perfect. You can go ahead and enjoy it. If not, let it sit for another day. Same with this. If you fill this, maybe this would take maybe 2 bottles, and every day, watch as the fizziness starts to build up, release and let a little bit of the carbon dioxide out, and then tighten it back again, let it sit for another day or 2, whatever the case may be. But as I explained in the ginger ale and making the homemade ginger ale, there's a sweet spot to all of this, because if you leave it too long, it'll actually start to lose carbonation over time, because there's really nothing left for the yeast and the bacteria to eat. And you've been letting out some of the carbonation to prevent any breakage. So it can become a little more flat. So what I recommend is after 2 days, start checking it, see if you like the level of fizziness, see if you like the flavor, and then at that point, you can enjoy it. You can refrigerate it, let it come down to a little bit of a cooler temperature and enjoy it like that. You can enjoy it at room temperature if you like your sodas like that, or you can pour it over ice. Now, like this, fermented and bottled like this, it will lose its carbonation relatively quickly, so you'll want to enjoy it once it's ready. In a swing top bottle, obviously it's going to stay carbonated because this is very strong glass, and these little corks that go in are very strong, and this is what people generally use when they make these carbonated beverages. But the reason I don't do that is they do make me nervous, but also too, homemade sodas are, in my opinion, a treat. I think if you want to drink carbonated beverages and that you're drinking them on a more regular basis, so you don't need to worry about bottling them and whatnot to maintain that little bit of effervescence, it's better to enjoy a kombucha or a water kefir or a milk kefir, something like that, because those I consider more healthful beverages in the long run for regular consumption. Homemade sodas are more a bit of a treat, and so I feel better just ferment them like this. Once they're at the sweetness that you like and the effervescence that you like, just enjoy them, and then you don't have to worry about bottling them like this. So all I'm going to do right now is just put this in my jar, and I'll get ready to just put it on my counter and let it ferment. So you just want to fill it up to about the rim. Put your lid on, and then put it in a nice warm place in your kitchen out of direct sunlight. And in a couple of days, you're going to start seeing this become very bubbly. And with fermented sodas like this, I just want to give you a little tip. You may start to see a little separation in this particular recipe and as it ferments. And you can just stir that right back in when you get ready to serve it. But I like to make my fermented sodas very rich with fruit. I feel that if you're going to, enjoy it, let it, in addition to the probiotic benefit, enjoy some nice fruit benefit as well, to have it be rich in fruit, rich in the vitamins and minerals that come with fruits. If you'd like to learn more about making traditional foods like fermented beverages, be sure to subscribe to my channel and then click on this video over here where I show you how to make the ginger bug so that you can make these homemade sodas. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.